Hi, my dear lovely students. How are you? Welcome to the session. So, in this class, we are going to discuss in detail about some strategies based on reading comprehension. My name is Juhi Narula, and let's get started. See, the most difficult portion that students find in VARC section or English section or verbal ability section is reading comprehension. Why? Because most of the times when we are solving the questions, we are solving without a strategic approach in our mind. So I strongly recommend that without an approach, we should not try solve the questions. See, you solve the questions of quant also with a formula, with an approach, with a concept. So why not in reading comprehension? Why not in verbal? Ultimately, we need to understand that it's a test of logic, and logic will be applicable both on quant and verbal. So the moment you understand that it is not, uh, logic present only in quant, logic is also tested in verbal. There are just two ways to test logic. One is through words and other is through numbers. So we would be learning a lot about the strategies based on reading comprehension in this session. Let's get started. So, when we talk about reading comprehension, what would prima facie come in your mind? There would be basically uh, four challenges that I would mention for you on the screen. And what are the four challenges? Let's see. Okay, so the first challenge is that we are not able to keep our focus intact, and under this we can put various challenges that we have read the entire passage, still we are not able to understand it, or we need to multiple have we need to have multiple readings while dealing with the passage, or we have solved the passage, but when it comes to the general questions we are not able to solve, right? Or we are reading the same line again and again, or we get completely distracted and forget that we had to read, and or we read it but we don't understand anything. Or it can be, so this will be finding solution in today's class, where we'll be learning how to intelligently deconstruct the passage, right? So this is very crucial. At times we would just not deconstruct the passage. That means we are having few goals in our mind while we will be solving and applying this strategy. My first goal would be that I should not lose focus. The moment I lose focus, I would not be able to answer the questions without revisiting the passage. Now, my idea is that there is no harm in revisiting the passage, but if you're rereading again and again the entire passage, it is a sin. And then we complain that we did not get sufficient time in verbal. See, it cannot happen, right? If a person is giving you sufficient time to solve the paper of quant, he or she would not deliberately, ensure that the time provided to you to solve the verbal section is limited or is not appropriate, right? Just think of it, give it 1 minute and think of it, that would it be logically feasible? Is that a possible case where everybody is being very strategic in terms of time allocation and the difficulty level of the question, and you're able to complete the other sections before or in the given stipulated time period, but when it comes to reading comprehension, people are when it comes to verbal ability, people are not giving you sufficient time. It cannot happen, right? So first thing that we need to keep in mind is that our investment of time should be correct. So how will we deconstruct the passage? That we are going to learn in the class. So today's class, we would be wanting to overcome few challenges. One, how I should read so that I do not lose focus. This is very, very important, right? Second is, for all the specific questions, I should know where to go back. So of course I am not a superman or a superwoman who will be able to remember and retain every little detail of the text that we are encountering for the first time in our lives. Is it possible? I still remember when I was in my junior classes and we used to learn social studies, history, geography. So we used to learn a lot of points and we used to revise it multiple times before going in the exam. And I still remember that whenever I learned 10 points, I could just recollect 7 or 8 at that point of time. So despite so many revisions, if I'm not able to recall all the points, how is it feasible that in the limited time span, when you're doing it for the first time in first go of the reading, that too under the stress of exam, under the stress of pressure, you will be able to remember everything? It's not practically feasible, right? So please keep this in mind that you can't retain every little detail, but yes, we should be strategic, that we should know where do we go back. So this is another goal that we will keep in mind. Next thing that we need to take care of is that for all the general questions, what are general questions? Questions based on primary purpose, main idea, tone, structure. We should be able to answer all those questions without, rereading the entire text, because these are based on overall understanding of the text. So if you would want to reread the entire, you can't answer the questions actually without, gathering complete, understanding of the passage of word, right? So focus, first goal. Second, general questions to be answered without referring back. Specific questions, we would go back, but we should know where to go back. So this would be the goal, and this would really help us sort major problems. Later part, we'll talk about, in coming sessions, how do we you deal with the questions, and how do we, take care of the elimination tool. So that's also one of the agendas of the coming sessions, and we would be taking care of that, right? So let's get started. I'll just yeah, so it was not having that editing wala option open, right? So let me just pen it down again so that we get better understanding. So yeah, so one is that we should be able to focus, answer general questions, and then it would be, go back for specific questions, right? So in general questions, what are the questions I would include that I should be able to answer without revisiting the text? Four. One would be the primary purpose. So primary purpose is why the author has written the entire paragraph. So it would be kyun, right? Then it would be main idea. So main idea is, what are we talking about? So what is the difference between main idea and primary purpose? Q and kya, right? And then there would be the next question, which is tone and structure. So structure is how is the passage being discussed and built. So this is how, and tone is again how the author is, feeling while he is writing the paragraph. So what is the attitude? What is the opinion of the author? That's what we mean by tone, right? So I hope we are clear here with the idea that what we'll be keeping in mind while we are learning this tactic. So keep the three goals in mind while we talk about the strategies. If you don't have the goals in mind, again, it would be a random thing that we would not want. So let's get started and understand how do we deconstruct the passage. So when we talk about the problems, like we were elaborating it in detail also, that first is that we are not able to comprehend the information, and that's a very strong problem that we feel. It will happen that if the passage comes on Sachin Tendulkar or maybe Virat Kohli or maybe Anushka Sharma, we'll be able to interpret it quickly and get all the questions right. But when it comes to or anthropology or something which is based on history or biology, where we have no interest, so it would be a complete bouncer, right? Or there can be very very long sentences that would, interrupt our understanding. So how do we overcome this particular challenge, right? This is something that is a major problem, and we need to find a solution to it, right? So what are the solutions? One is aggressive reading. So when we talk about aggressive reading, you actually need to read a lot. A lot means a lot, right? You have to have varied reading. I always say that as much as possible, try to read the editorials. This is again I am highlighting. So why? There are two ways to read. One is you read in newspapers, so you need to decide that how are you going to read depending on the time that you have. So if you have got an year to prepare, or if you have 2 years to prepare, then you can, start with some initial novels and then accelerate your reading. But if you have very limited time in your hand, then it would not be feasible that, you first create a base by, reading fictions, and then you'll move to non-fictions, and then you'll go to, more comprehensive reading. Rather, I would advise that if you are in the later stage, that means your exam is happening within 6 months or 8 months, then you should start reading a lot of editorials. Why do I suggest you to go for editorials? It's like, um, I'll give you this example that when we talk about editorials, we usually intend to have a potpourri of all the concepts. So if I am craving for authentic South Indian food and I want to have dosa also, I want to have medu vada also, I want to try idli also. So of course, if I'll order one plate for each, I would not be able to finish. But instead, if I order a platter, I would get everything and it would be manageable to eat, right? So that's what editorials do. You get to have an understanding, or you develop understanding, or you read about various types of articles, right? There can be an article that might talk about our Republic Day celebrations. There might be an article that talks about the movement Shark India has brought in, right? It can talk about climatic change. It can talk about some religious discourse can be there. So you'll be having an exposure to varied reading, and when we read varied stuff, then we become familiar, and then that fear goes away. So highly recommended that you read editorials, right? And another suggestion which I always give, that start solving more passages. So this is why do we say to solve more passages? Because here you are dealing with multiple domains. How do I mean by that? That if you're reading a passage, then you'll be solving the questions, you'll be dealing with the answer choices, you'll be trying to put your energy and focus to interpret the question rightly. So in a way you are getting more practice, right? So that's anyways helping you out to read and become better with test taking strategies, and you do more practice, so that makes you more confident, right? So these are few suggestions. Next is, please identify the time that you are taking to read the passage, right? So students do this count also. There are some trainers who would suggest words per minute. Either of the ways it is fine. Words per minute means that calculate the total number of words and see how much time that you have invested in reading it. So you'll be able to very easily come to this conclusion that what is your speed, WPM, we call it WPM, words per minute, that you are reading. Otherwise, in general, also see that how much time are you taking. Now if you are taking somewhere around 10 to 12 minutes to read a passage, this is actually a lot of time, right? If you will see that whatever total time is given for each of the papers, be it SAT, GRE, or IPPS, or whatever exam you're going for, you need to see that what is the total time, and would I be able to fix the passage. And if I have multiple passages, and even if I'm taking 10 to 12 minutes or 15 minutes or 17 minutes, would that be giving me an opportunity to complete my paper? If not, then you have to reduce the time. So you know uh, that's something that you need to really aggressively track. So what do we do in verbal? We don't actually try to put anything on paper. We are doing everything in our brains. डर लगता है वर्बल से, क्या किया पता नहीं, कोई स्ट्रैटेजी देखी नहीं की, हवा में आप पैसेज पढ़ते हो, तो ये आप सब कुछ एक्चुअली कुछ कर ही नहीं रहे हो पेंसिल और पेपर पे, एंड दैट्स वेयर द प्रॉब्लम एग्रेवेट्स. तो हमें प्रॉब्लम को एग्रेवेट नहीं करना. वी आर मूविंग टुवर्ड्स अ सोल्यूशन. एंड हाउ आर वी मूविंग टुवर्ड्स अ सोल्यूशन? व्हेन वी आर इंटेंटिंग to have a thought process behind it. Without a thought process, if you are solving the things, let me tell you, my students, that it is basically a time waste. आप it can be a good day, अगर आप strategize नहीं कर रहे, आप analyze नहीं कर रहे, आपका कोई thought process नहीं है, आपका कोई approach नहीं है, तो आप वो same mistakes बार बार करते रहोगे. ड्यू कोर्स ऑफ टाइम में वो कई बार साल भी हो जाता है, कई बार 2 साल भी हो जाता है. बच्चे ऐसा करते हैं ना कि मल्टीपल अटेम्प्ट्स के बाद सिलेक्शन होता है. वो इसलिए होता है क्योंकि धीरे धीरे वो अंडरस्टैंडिंग बिल्ड होती है. तो when the idea to take professional help is कि वो आपको इतना टाइम ना लगे वो अंडरस्टैंडिंग बिल्ड होने पे, और आप सही डायरेक्शन में एफर्ट करना शुरू से शुरू कर दो. Half of the time students would be doing efforts which is not in the right direction, and then there would be a complete mess. So we have to be very very cautious. We have to be very aware that our effort is in the right direction, right? So at times you are practicing, you are doing the passages right, and you are taking a lot of time. Now when you get the similar sort of a passage in the exam, you would not be able to perform well, and then you'll worry that while while doing practices I'm doing well, but when I give mocks or when I go for my papers, I actually don't do well. Why? Because you never took the pressure of time while you were preparing, right? So these are the loopholes, and unfortunate part is students are not aware of these things. So that is the reason when I talk about reading comprehension, I would just want to solve one or two RCs with you, but I would really want to talk about the fundamental problems and the solutions in detail. Because if I'll not talk about it, then you'll be doing the same mistake again and again. So please keep this in mind that you are tracking. Okay, so this time I solved the entire passage, it took me 15 minutes. Next time I'm going to do it in 14 minutes, and then I'll uh, reduce the time to 13 minutes, and every passage I'm going to reduce some time. Or if you are seeing that if you're reducing time, your accuracy is being hampered, that's going to happen, then you can stick to, you can reduce the time by just 30 seconds, or you can reduce the time just by 15 seconds, or you can practice a few passages on the time of 13 minutes and then gradually come down. So these are little details, but they make such a big impact, and they help you track your progress, they help you know how far have you reached. So this is something that we need to keep in mind. Just don't, again and again I'm reiterating the idea, just don't randomly go and solve some passages, you will not get any great output from it. Now, there's another huge problem that I've seen, and especially this was when I used to visit the center before the online things started happening. Uh, Very prevalent problem that we'll give a passage to solve, students will start reading it loud, and if they start reading it loud, they are able to concentrate better. But this would not be possible when you are going in the exam. So, uh, how would you do it? You would be using your scratch pad, and that's the intent of today's session, to help you understand that how are we going to use the scratch pad. Now, don't make any habit that's something which is not feasible, right? You are reading out loud, you are solving the passage, you are feeling confident, your focus is intact, you go in the examination, all of the person says that you can't read loud, then how would you be able to solve the passage there where it is most important? So don't make an habit which is not good for you, right? So please keep these things in mind, because these are mistakes that we will still be deliberately doing despite so much of discussion. So you have to pen them down, and you need to write, no, this is something which I'm not going to do, this is something I should be careful about, this is something which is an obvious mistake, or I do it because I'm not finding any solution, right? What do I do? So that's the reason we'll give you some strategic solutions, that if you can't read out loud, what are you going to do? But for that, first you should be clear that what you are not going to do, right? Next is you need to be calm, and you need to stay focused. You need to train yourself to do that, right? It is not going to happen overnight. You become nervous, you become fidgety, and whenever there's a long statement that's coming, that's actually a speed breaker, and that's deliberately inserted, right? So I'm a content creator, I know I've done this, that I have deliberately included long sentences, very long sentences, so that it impacts the understanding of the student, and student starts losing confidence. So when you understand that this is a tactic to bring me down, you'll be more aware. Say for instance, you are supposed to go to a battlefield, and you know that your enemy is going to use strong arrows to shoot you down. So you will be having your armor, right? You will be protected, you will be aware. So the same is the case when you know that the long sentences are deliberately inserted to boggle me down. Why are you getting boggled, right? You need to know that this is a tactic, or this is the game plan. Rather, what do you do is, if it's a very very long sentence, you can break it into three or four components, three or four portions, and then try to understand. Or if you are actually having a serious trouble, you can just skip that particular sentence, right? Just understand what's happening, don't get into the details. आप याद थोड़ी कर सकते हो उतने लिमिटेड टाइम, ये बड़ा एक ऐसा प्रेशर हम अपने ऊपर ले लेते हैं जो एक्चुअली नेसेसरी नहीं है। आप कोई टेक्स्ट को पहली बार पढ़ रहे हो, पहली बार एग्जाम के स्ट्रेस में पढ़ रहे हो, क्लॉक इज टिकिंग, आप कैसे वो रिटेन कर पाओगे? So you have to be very important to stay calm, don't just lose your mental peace over it, because if you are actually start if you've started panicking, game is over, right? So we have to be very very cautious. Now we have talked about the problem. We have talked about feasible solutions, but how are we going to apply those solutions, right? That's very, very important. So let me talk about this very interesting strategy, which I've personally given to a lot of students and it has worked wonders for them. So this strategy is what we call mapping. Okay, so what is mapping? Let me explain it to you. Or we call it deconstructing the passage, whatever you name it. Have you seen the map of India? So I'll just give you 30 seconds and think of that when it comes to a map, what comes into your mind, right? I'll give you one entire minute to ponder on it. Just think of it that when I talk about map, what comes in your mind? I'm sure you must have given a good thought. Now, let me tell you what must have come in your mind. Well, what actually came to my mind when I learned this concept or when I created this, the maps we used to get when we were used to solve our social science exams, right? We had to mark rivers. So we had two maps, right? Physical maps. Think of India's physical map. That's giving you an outline of the country. Is it getting into the details? No, right? It's just giving you an overview. And that's what you need to do. So with every sentence that you are writing, try to look for two things. What is the function of that particular statement? And another is that, one or two keywords each line. Why are we going to do it? Because if you do scratch paper work, your focus will not go away, because every time you're trying to understand that what is the function of this line, what is this line doing, now what can be the functions, let me write it. So see, this is a scratch paper work. You get a scratch paper for every possible exam, right? And it is, there is no cap to it. That means nobody is going to say that for quant boss you take 20 papers, for English you can just take one. That's not going to happen, right? You can demand for as many papers as you would want, right? One thing, you're doing it for your own self, right? You are not getting any marks, so don't try to be very proper with the scratch work, right? जैसे आप quant में करते हो ना, I'm also an engineer and I've also solved quant questions, so we know that we just do this calculation 17 into 3 and we'll write it anywhere and everywhere, right? So we are not hesitating to do this simple maths calculation, which there's a good possibility that we have learned this table when we were in our junior classes, right? Everybody has learned the table. So there's a niece of mine who's in third standard, and yesterday I met her, so she knew the table of 19. So now if you are 20, 21 and above the age, I'm sure you still do some of the calculations, right? Or we are doing some basic calculations or percent divisions, which we can do it orally, but we would not want to risk it, and that is the reason we do scratch paperwork, and that is the reason we are more uh, uh, we are more stronger when it comes to quant. But in verbal we want to do everything in our brain. That we would not want. We would want to have good scratch paperwork involvement, but I am just trying to say, don't make it like notes. I'm not saying note making नहीं करनी. नोट मेकिंग का मतलब ये होता है, जैसे अगर आप अभी मेरी क्लास अटेंड कर रहे हो और अगर आप कुछ की पॉइंट्स को लिखते हो, वो नोट मेकिंग है, राइट? बिकॉज यू वुड नॉट वांट टू फॉरगेट. आप अकाउंट्स की क्लास में हो, आप कुछ की पॉइंट्स को लिख रहे हो, वो नोट मेकिंग है, बिकॉज यू वुड वांट टू इंश्योर दैट वट एवर द टीचर इज सेइंग वुड बी यूजफुल. आई वुड वांट टू टेक अ लुक बैक इट अगेन इन द फ्यूचर. So let me write it as detailed as possible. No detailing. Mapping is done to increase your involvement with the discussion and help you trace the information, right? Not to, keep your India's map in your mind. Not to, answer the questions from the scratch paper work. वो नहीं करना. इस गोल को clearly भूल जाइए कि आप mapping इसलिए नहीं कर रहे हो कि जो आपने notes बनाए उसके basis पे आप passage के क्वेश्चंस को आंसर करोगे, उसके बेसिस पे आप वापस जाओगे कि कौन से स्टेटमेंट को रिविजिट करना है। जैसे सपोज करो, मैं आपको ऑफकोर्स एक पैसेज में इसका डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन दिखाऊंगी, पहले हम ये देख लेते हैं कि किसी भी स्टेटमेंट के क्या फंक्शन हो सकता है। ये this is one approach, you can tweak it how it works for you. Either the statement can be claim or a conclusion, interchangeably used terms हैं. What was the objective of writing the conclusion or the paragraph, right? What is the conclusion, what is the end goal, what is the aim, right? Now then the second thing would be supporting evidence, right? How is the author supporting the idea that he has floated. Then the next would be negation, right? Or an objection. So negation and objection, if the author is not agreeing with any particular point of view. So when you get words like nevertheless, nonetheless, so such words, so you know that the author is trying to talk about a negative perspective or taking the discussion in the opposite direction or objecting on the fact. Or it can be simply a background information. Background information is what, that just to इंट्रोड्यूस द टॉपिक। जैसे अगर आपको एक ऐसे लिखने को देते हैं तो आप सीधा तो नहीं लिखने लग जाते ना कि आई स्ट्रांगली बिलीव कि जीएसटी की एप्लीकेशन इंडिया में नहीं करनी चाहिए थी या करनी चाहिए थी। पहले आप बताते हो कि भाई जीएसटी क्या है, कैसे इंट्रोड्यूस हुआ, ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या था, कौन सा टैक्स सिस्टम को रिप्लेस किया, एंड देन पॉसिबली यू विल गेट इनटू द डिटेल्स वेयर यू विल टॉक अबाउट that how it has given an advantage, how it has made a positive impact on the country or negative, whatever your perspective is. तो आप स्टेटमेंट्स को इन चार कैटेगरीज में क्लासिफाई कर लो। अगर आपको ये डाउट है कि मेरे को कैसे पता मैंने मेरा जजमेंट सही है, कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता। ये आप स्क्रैच पेपर वर्क के लिए कर रहे हो, अपने इन्वॉल्वमेंट के लिए कर रहे हो। अगर थोड़ा बहुत ऊपर नीचे भी हो गया, दिस इज नॉट गोइंग टू इम्पैक्ट योर आंसर सॉल्विंग, राइट? और वन और टू कीवर्ड्स ये आप हम इसलिए कर रहे हैं क्योंकि अगर आप ऐसा ही सोचोगे तो आपके यू विल नॉट गेट एनी टाइम टू थिंक ऑफ आलिया भट्ट while you're solving the passage. You will be really really focused. So these are the strategies to enhance your focus. Now आपने देखा कि आपको लगा सपोज फोर्थ लाइन एक ऑब्जेक्शन है और वहां पर ऑथर ने लिमिटेशंस की बात करनी शुरू कर दी, लिमिटेशंस ऑफ अ डील दैट हैज हैपेंड। अगर आपके पास एक क्वेश्चन आता है कि क्या लिमिटेशंस थी डील की, तो आप क्या करोगे, इस फिफ्थ लाइन पर वापस चले जाओगे पैसेज पे। आप यहाँ से नहीं आंसर ढूंढोगे स्क्रैच पेपर से, बट कहाँ फिफ्थ लाइन पे कैसे जाना है, ये आपको जो आपने स्क्रैच पेपर वर्क किया वो हेल्प करेगा। तो वो एक लोकेटर की तरह है, वो इन्फॉर्मेशन वहां से आपको एक्सट्रैक्ट नहीं करनी, बट आप फिफ्थ लाइन पर जाओगे, आपको क्वेश्चन क्लियर है, आप स्पेसिफिकली वही लाइन पढ़ रहे हो, तो आपको कोई कंफ्यूजन होगा ही नहीं, राइट? सो आई होप आई मेक सेंस। अब इसमें एक इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ है कि आपको इंटेलिजेंट रीडिंग करनी है जब आप मैपिंग कर रहे हो। कैसे? मैं वही मैपिंग के प्रोसेस को आपको इलाबोरेट कर रही हूँ। सो व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट इंटेलिजेंट रीडिंग का मतलब है आपको ओपनिंग और क्लोजिंग स्टेटमेंट्स पे ज़्यादा अटेंशन देनी है। मैं ये नहीं कह रही सिर्फ ओपनिंग और क्लोजिंग स्टेटमेंट्स ही पढ़ें। देयर इज अ ह्यूज आई डोंट नो हाउ दिस आइडिया फ्लोट्स, बट इफ यू आर जस्ट रीडिंग ओपनिंग एंड क्लोजिंग स्टेटमेंट्स एंड you are thinking to crack up an aptitude test, that's like something which will never work, right? It will never work. We say put more focus on opening and closing statements because author tries to opening statement में introduction आएगा, so you would know what is the discussion all about, right? So opening statement is introducing you to the topic, letting you know that what is the discussion about, right? And closing statement is usually bringing the conclusion or bringing the discussion to a logical end. So that is the reason more focus is required, right? So you have to ensure that why do we suggest that these lines are to be read properly, because if you would not understand that what is the passage dealing with, how would you pick up the rhythm of the passage, right? And conclusions usually the author would try to bring in the end when he is closing or wrapping up the discussion. So that is the reason most of the trainers would suggest to read it carefully, but just solely reading it would not help in solving the passage, right? So this is one important thing. Please, if you have seen my videos, I am one trainer who would strongly recommend transition words. You call them structural time posts, you call them transition words, you call them signposts, whatever you call it, but these are words which are very very important in helping you deal with the questions of verbal ability. So again, it might be sounding repetitive, but again, I'll say it. When I teach critical reasoning, I ask to notice these words. When I'll teach how to write an essays, I'll ask you to write these words, incorporate these words in your essays. When we are doing sentence completion, I will tell you to notice these words, right? So when we are doing para jumbles, again I'll ask you to observe these words. So when we are doing rcs, it's a very important thing, right? आपने देखा कि second paragraph में उसने कहा there are several limitations to this theory. आपने पहला word पढ़ा firstly, line complete करी. Second word था furthermore, second line का first word. Third line का था in addition to, और फिर word आ गया lastly. I'll explain it to you. Suppose करिए आप एक paragraph पढ़ रहे हैं जिसमें बोलता है there's a limitations to xyz theory, right? You start reading from here. This is the second paragraph. Just imagine that you are reading a second paragraph. There is this word firstly, statement complete hota hai yahan tak. Then this is an entire line, so whatever is written. Now there is this word furthermore, and then there is this entire idea built till here. Then it is in addition to, and then here the word comes lastly, and this is the last line of the paragraph. Now if you have understood, if you're mapping the paragraph, right, so you are writing limitations, right? So here if we are mapping the paragraph, so I'll say second paragraph, first line, right? So the function is objection. Now what is the objection? That there are limitations, so I'll just write limit, right? Whatever short form that works for you. Now what I'm going to observe, I'm going to observe the word firstly, so the first limitation being talked about. Furthermore, second limitation, in addition to, and lastly. These words help me understand that this entire paragraph is talking about limitations. Now if the question comes that which of the limitation has not been talked about in the passage, तो आपको ये पूरा passage तब तो पढ़ना पड़ेगा, आप अभी तो याद कर नहीं सकते. आपने सपोज करिए इस पैराग्राफ को 4 मिनट लगा दिए समझने में और इससे कोई भी क्वेश्चन नहीं आया, तो आपने तो अपने 4 मिनट खराब कर दिए, राइट? सो यू हैव टू बी स्मार्ट ईयर. और अगर क्वेश्चन आ गया तो भी आप रिटेन तो नहीं कर पाओगे, एक वर्ड इधर उधर हो गया एंड योर एंटायर गेम विल बी स्पॉइल्ड, यू विल नॉट बी एबल टू सॉल्व द क्वेश्चन. एनीवेज आपको वापस आना पड़ेगा, बट बाय ऑब्जर्विंग ट्रांजिशन वर्ड्स, अगर क्वेश्चन नहीं आया तो आप नहीं आओगे वापस. इन अ वे यू आर सेविंग टाइम, एंड if you get the question, then you know where to go back. So that is how the ideas are being built, how is the discussion being carried forward. These words will give you great clues, so you have to be very very vigilant. Make it a habit from today. Any passage that you solve, please ensure that you're observing transition words. These words are used to simplify the discussion and presentation of ideas and help the learners or the students grab these words so that they can utilize these clues to get better reasoning established for themselves while they are dealing with comprehensions, or rather with any question. So again, I'm reiterating the idea that I'm a strong believer that transition words should be observed carefully. If you're not observing transition words, you're putting yourself in great trouble, or maybe you're not utilizing the clues which are meant for you, right? And which is something uh, you know something that doesn't sound to be great, right? So there are these words, and the best part is these words. Again, I might sound repetitive, you must have seen I'm talking about these words again and again, but I would still re-emphasize, these words are that you can easily see anywhere and everywhere. You just need to stop, take a look, and then proceed, right? So thus therefore these words will help you understand that there is a conclusion, right? All these words will talk about a conclusion, or however it will be taking the discussion the negative direction or in the opposite direction. That would be a better way. Moreover, in addition to is building the idea, taking the discussion forward. Again, yet, but, nonetheless, all these are taking the discussion in the opposite direction. So you have to be very very cautious while you observe these words, and ensure that you're able to understand that how the discussion is proceeding, when the author introduces such words. So this is again a very important suggestion to you. So the first suggestion was to be careful while we are reading the opening and the closing statements, and the next would be that while we are reading the passage, we should be careful while we encounter structural signposts. I'll give you a minute, please write down these words, so that you are careful what you need to notice. So I'll give you 30 seconds, please write down these words, and then we are going to proceed further, or write both the steps, how mapping has to be done. Problems, we are just working on the solutions. So let's further proceed. Okay, so there's more detail to structural signposts. Now you see in detail. Now I've created categories also for you. So when we're talking about illustrations, examples, so these are the words that we use. So I'll give you 30 seconds, read the word, think of the usage, make a sentence with each word, and see when you encounter these words, what would come into your mind. So we are getting in detail of the structural signposts. Again, like I said, it's very, very crucial. So you are already familiar, just listing them down as it's actually needed at times that you read the list carefully, right? So just don't look here and there, read this list carefully and ensure that you know the usage of these words. So let's further proceed. So now when we talk about contrast, these words are contrast words or taking the discussion in opposite direction. Please read these words so that you are familiar. And at times students say, "Ma'am, हमें तो आता ही है words, क्या read करने?" Actually, if the trainer is suggesting something, you should do it. जब आप read कर लेते हो, in a way you register these words in your mind, right? And since you're doing it in rhythm of the discussion, you will find it more effective. So please do this exercise. I will not suggest you anything that's not good for you. Please do that. So let's further read. Now, these are the words that help you put the discussion in the forward direction, right? So you are building the ideas. So you can take a quick look at the words, lot of words, but you have to be careful and you'll be able to, notice these words while you encounter them if you are aware to notice, right? So make it a habit and it is not going to take any extra time. So at times students say, मैम ये हम strategy लगाएंगे हमारा time तो नहीं ज़्यादा लगेगा, नहीं लगेगा. दो keywords लिखने में per sentence आपका कोई time ज़्यादा नहीं लगेगा and you have to just scribble. So background information पूरा नहीं लिखोगे आपकी अच्छा ऐसे लिखना है, राइट. सो ऑफ कोर्स अगर इतना डिटेल में लिखोगे तो टाइम जाएगा. यू कैन जस्ट राइट बीजी, क्लेम, एविडेंस, ऑब्जेक्शन. इसमें कितना टाइम लगा, राइट? एंड इट विल, आप एक लाइन को 4 बार पढ़ते हो ना उतने में तो आप बहुत ही टाइम सेव कर लोगे. तो टाइम का सीपेज बिल्कुल नहीं होगा. सो डोंट वरी, देयर इज फियर इन द माइंड ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स कि मैम इतना लिखेंगे तो क्या टाइम नहीं खराब हो जाएगा. एक एक लेटर लिखना है, राइट? और उसके बाद 1 और 2 कीवर्ड जो भी स्क्रिबल करने, लिमिटेशन को पूरा लिखने की जरूरत नहीं है. LTS लिख दीजिए जो आपको समझ में आता हो, राइट? देयर वर लॉट ऑफ स्टूडेंट्स बाय बैचमेट्स. जब हम जूनियर क्लासेस में थे, अगर हम हिस्ट्री की क्लास में नोट्स बनाते थे, एग्रीकल्चर को AGRI लिख लेते, हम समझ में आ जाता था. तो आपको कैसे आता है? जैसे इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन को आप सिर्फ REV लिख दीजिए, क्योंकि आप इसके बेसिस पे क्वेश्चन तो सॉल्व नहीं कर रहे ना. इसके बेसिस पे आप एक ओवरऑल आइडिया क्रिएट कर लोगे पैसेज का और स्पेसिफिक क्वेश्चंस के लिए आपको पता होगा कहाँ पर जाना है. और क्योंकि आप इतना स्क्रैच पेपर वर्क कर रहे हो तो आप मेंटली बहुत इन्वॉल्व हो, तो आपका फोकस नहीं लूज होगा, राइट? चलिए, ये इंपॉर्टेंट है. ये टाइम एस्पेक्ट को डील करता है, यानी कि इन टर्म्स ऑफ टाइम कोई क्लू मिलता है तो वो ये वर्ड सजेस्ट करते हैं. तो दीज आर सम एडवर्ब्स ऑफ टाइम ऑल्सो. प्लीज रीड दिस लिस्ट केयरफुली. टेक 1 entire minute and then we will proceed further. So let's further proceed. Now, identify crucial information. सो अगर आप टोन की बात करते हो तो आपको ये समझना है टोन का कैसे काम होगा। तो टोन का मतलब है कि टोन, हाउ इज द ऑथर बिल्डिंग द आइडिया। जैसे मैंने यहाँ पर एक कैट के पैसेजेस का बात करी है कि कैट के पैसेजेस कभी नेगेटिव नहीं होते। इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि ऑथर ऑब्जेक्शन नहीं रीच कर सकता, राइट। तो टोन नेगेटिव नहीं होगी पर एक पर्सपेक्टिव तो दूसरी डायरेक्शन में प्रपोज किया ही जा सकता है, राइट। सो अगेन द क्रूशियल इंफॉर्मेशन इज कि जब आप पैसेज पढ़ रहे हैं तो आपको प्राइमरी पर्पस के क्वेश्चन को आंसर कर देना है विदाउट रिविजिटिंग। क्योंकि प्राइमरी पर्पस पे रिविजिट करेंगे मतलब आपको पूरा पैसेज वापस पढ़ना पड़ेगा, और अगर आपने पूरा पैसेज वापस पढ़ लिया आपका टाइम फैक्टर तो गॉन है। फिर तो पक्का आप कहीं ना कहीं सैक्रिफाइस कर रहे होंगे इन टर्म्स ऑफ टाइम, तो ये आप कभी नहीं करोगे। प्लीज कीप दिस एडवाइस सिंसियरली इन योर माइंड कि आपको आपका एंड गोल ये है कि मुझे पैसेज वापस पूरा नहीं पढ़ना, एग्जाम में नहीं पढ़ना। तो इस पॉइंट को बहुत स्ट्रांगली पूरा नहीं पढ़ना, स्पेसिफिकली कोई इन्फॉर्मेशन को जाएंगे तो रिट्रेस तो करना पड़ेगा। क्योंकि फिर वो भी एक भी मिसकंसेप्शन है कि सब कुछ याद रह जाए, कैसे याद रहेगा, राइट। अपने लिए वो एक्सपेक्टेशंस मत सेट करिए जो पॉसिबल नहीं है, क्योंकि फिर आप रॉन्ग डायरेक्शन में एफर्ट करते रहते हो और आउटपुट मिलता नहीं, डिसअपॉइंटमेंट ज्यादा हो जाता है। तो प्राइमरी पर्पस टोन मैंने आपको बताया कि टोन को कैसे करेंगे, पॉजिटिव नेगेटिव है या न्यूट्रल है। अगर इतना भी समझ लेंगे तो एलिमिनेशन से आंसर तक पहुंच जाएंगे। सो टोन हाउ है, स्ट्रक्चर भी कैसे आइडिया बिल्ड हो रहा है, राइट। हाउ इज द आर्ग्यूमेंट प्रोसीडिंग, हाउ इज द पैसेज प्रोसीडिंग, प्राइमरी पर्पस वाई है और मेन आइडिया व्हाट है। इन क्वेश्चंस को आपको दिमाग में, ये अगर आपको एक कैप्सूल समझ में आ गया ना कि हो क्या रहा है, अच्छा पैसेज ने ऑथर ने एक थ्योरी को प्रपोज किया, उस थ्योरी की लिमिटेशंस को सजेस्ट किया, उस थ्योरी की एडवांटेजेस को स्टडी किया और फर्दर क्या स्टेप ऑफ एक्शंस लेने चाहिए उसके बारे में बात करी। तो इतना भी अगर आप ये 4 लाइनों में पैसेज की समरी बता देते हो हिंदी में भी चाहे, देन योर आइडिया इज सॉर्टेड, तो आप ये सारे क्वेश्चन आंसर कर लोगे, राइट। सो यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड हाउ द आइडियाज आर प्रोसीडिंग। लाइक अगर मैं एक पैसेज की, मैं आपको डेमोन्स्ट्रेट भी करूंगी, एक पैसेज की मैपिंग करी हमने हमने लिखा फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ इंट्रोड्यूसेस अ थ्योरी, राइट, इंट्रोड्यूसेस अ थ्योरी। फिर आपने देखा ट्रांजिशन है, फिर आपने लिख दिया डिटेल, राइट। आपने कहा फिर उसी आइडिया को बिल्ड कर रहा है डिटेल, आपको पता चल गया फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ में तो थ्योरी के बारे में एक्सप्लेनेशन। सेकेंड पैराग्राफ में आपने देखा देयर आर सेवरल ऑब्जेक्शंस प्रेजेंटेड टू दिस थ्योरी, आपने ट्रांजिशंस ऑब्जर्व किया, आपको पता चल गया पूरा पैराग्राफ ऑब्जेक्शन की बात कर रहा है। थर्ड पैराग्राफ में ऑथर ने कहा सो व्हाट आर द सजेशंस टू ओवरकम द ऑब्जेक्शंस। तो आपको फ्लो ऑफ आइडिया पता चल गया, स्ट्रक्चर पता चल गया, आपके सामने पिक्चर क्लियर है। अब क्वेश्चन पूछे कि थ्योरी में कौन सी, थ्योरी से रिलेटेड कोई क्वेश्चन पूछेगा, आप फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ पे जाओगे, कौन से लिमिटेशन के बारे में ऑथर ने बात नहीं करी है या करी है इसके बारे में जाओगे, और उसके पॉसिबल सजेशंस क्या है यहाँ पर जाओगे। किसी वर्ड का मीनिंग पूछ लिया तो आपने इन्फॉर्मेशन ट्रेस कर लोगे। तो हमें पता है कहाँ पर जाना है, आइडिया कैसे फ्लोट हो रहा है, वो आपने मैपिंग से पिक्चर क्लियर कर ली, राइट, एक मैप बना लिया माइंड में, राइट। स्ट्रक्चर इम्पॉर्टेंट है, राइट। तो कैट का एक जनरल स्ट्रक्चर ऑल पैसेजेस पे एप्लीकेबल होता है, और यूजुअली अदर मैनेजमेंट एंट्रेंस टेस्ट में ऐसा रहता है, जीमैट में ऐसा रहता है, बैंक पीओ में भी ऐसा रहता है, राइट। तो यहाँ पे एक डिटेल प्रपोजिशन होती है और उसी के आइडिया अराउंड आइडिया बिल्ड होता है। सो स्ट्रक्चर्स हाउ आर द इवेंट्स फॉलोइंग, राइट। तो अभी मैं आपके साथ एक पैसेज करूंगी बिकॉज इट्स बीन टू मच ऑफ थ्योरी दैट वी हैव डन। तो अगर हम एक पैसेज पे अप्लाई करके देखेंगे तो वील फाइंड अ गुड क्लैरिटी, राइट। और जो दोनों क्वेश्चंस इस पैसेज के साथ इंक्लूडेड है वो जनरल क्वेश्चंस है। तो हमारा ऑब्जेक्टिव ये है तीन, ये गोल्स को याद रखिएगा, मैं वापस लिख रही हूँ आपके लिए, कहीं लिख लीजिए जब पैसेज खत्म हो तो क्या होना चाहिए। फोकस इंटैक्ट, जनरल क्वेश्चंस आंसर्ड, कौन से जनरल क्वेश्चंस है वो मैंने आपको बता दिए, राइट। General questions answered. Know where to go back for specific questions. Okay, so write these 3 steps and then I'll elaborate how do we do mapping. आप या एक we can do this task that how difference, how mapping would create a difference, we'll be able to understand. So you just read the passage generally and then we'll do it by mapping and we'll see that how the ideas are different. So I'll give you 2 minutes, आराम से पढ़िए, there's no pressure. अगर मैपिंग साथ करना चाहते हैं करिए, अदरवाइज आई जस्ट एक्सप्लेन इट टू यू हाउ इट इज डन। So let me teach you how it is done. Before that, let me rub the board so that you have more clarity and there is no confusion for you. Okay, so let's see. Now, line number, that's for what I will do. And then function of the statement एंड देन द डिटेल आप इसको थोड़ा ट्वीक कर सकते हो जैसे आपको कन्वीनियंट हो ये एक आइडिया है कि ये दिस इज वन अप्रोच इसको आप पर्सनलाइज कर सकते हो क्योंकि इसके आपको मार्क्स नहीं मिल रहे राइट ये आप अपनी क्लैरिटी के लिए कर रहे हो तो इसका आप ध्यान रखना as the economic role of multinational corporations expands, the international economic environment will be shaped increasingly not by governments or international institutions, but by interaction between government and global corporations, especially in यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स यूरोप एंड जापान आप देख रहे हो सेंटेंस की लेंथ सो दिस इज डेलिबरेटली डन कि आप पे प्रेशर बने तो आप क्या कर रहे हो लाइन वन है और बैकग्राउंड इंफॉर्मेशन है तो मैं यहाँ पर मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग ये कहती है कि यहाँ एक तो यूएसए जहाँ भी आपको प्रॉपर नाउंस मिल रहे हैं ना उसको लिखते जाइए क्योंकि अगर क्वेश्चन आया कि यूएसए जापान और यूरोप का डिस्कशन किस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में किया तो वी वुड नो वेयर टू गो बैक तो ये कह रहे हैं कि विद द इंक्रीज इन इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट मैंने आपको वैसे भी कहा था पहली लाइन पे फोकस ज्यादा करिएगा विद द इंक्रीज इन इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इज दैट इन interactions are becoming important right so this is saying will be shaped increasingly not by government or international institutions but between the interactions so interactions between governments and corporations आप ग्लोबल लिखना चाहें तो ग्लोबल लिख लीजिए और फिर उन्होंने तीन एग्जांपल्स दे दिए सो वी आर क्लियर विद द फर्स्ट आइडिया राइट अ सिग्निफिकेंट फैक्टर इन द वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमी इज द ट्रेंड सो व्हाट इज द सिग्निफिकेंट फैक्टर अब आप देखिए आपको एक क्वेश्चन आया सिग्निफिकेंट फैक्टर लिख दीजिए और ये बैकग्राउंड इन्फॉर्मेशन ही उसी आइडिया को बिल्ड कर रहा है या एविडेंस लिख दीजिए जो आपको समझ में आए या आपको पहला स्टेटमेंट क्लेम लगता है तो आप क्लेम भी लिख सकते हो सो डोंट गेट कंफ्यूज कि मुझे क्लेम लग रहा है मैम को बैकग्राउंड लग रहा है या वाइसा वर्सा इट्स ओके राइट तो आपसे क्वेश्चन पूछा कि सिग्निफिकेंट फैक्टर इन दिस शिफ्टिंग इकोनॉमी व्हाट इज द सिग्निफिकेंट फैक्टर आप यहाँ पर आ सकते हो अब आप पूरा पैसेज नहीं पढ़ रहे आपको पता चल गया है कि डिस्कशन किसके बारे में हो रहा है स्पेसिफिकली उस लाइन पे आकर इन्फॉर्मेशन को रिविजिट कर रहे हो तो ऑफकोर्स योर क्लैरिटी वुड बी बेटर देयर विल बी नो कंफ्यूजन देयर वुड बी नो इनकरेक्ट आंसर दैट कैन स्वे यू सो दिस इज द एडवांटेज ऑफ मैपिंग आप पढ़ लीजिए बट फिर भी अगर आप याद भी करोगे और आप ओरली मतलब विदाउट रिविजिटिंग आंसर करने की कोशिश करते हो आई वुड नॉट रिकमेंड एक बार वापस पढ़ लो इट वुड नॉट टेक 30 seconds not more than 30 seconds but you will see a great accuracy so a significant factor in this shifting world economy is the trend towards regional trading blocks of nations which has potentially large effect on evolution of world trading system बस अगर आपको ये पता चलिए एक significant factor की बात हो रही है तो आप इतना दिमाग नहीं लगाओगे उस लाइन को समझने में और ज़रूरत भी नहीं है क्योंकि आप जितनी देर में समझोगे उतनी देर में आप आने वाला पूरा पैसेज मैप कर दोगे और क्वेश्चन आएगा तो हम यहाँ पर चले जाएंगे अब क्वेश्चन आएगा तो आप स्पेसिफिकली बिल्कुल क्वेश्चन को लेकर इन्फॉर्मेशन को ट्रेस कर रहे हो तो यू विल बी डेफिनेटली मोर फोकस्ड एंड द इंफॉर्मेशन वुड मेक मोर सेंस फर्दर देखिए टू एग्जाम्पल्स ऑफ दिस ट्रेंड अब एलैबोरेशन हो गया अब मैं लाइन 3 पे लिख सकती हूँ एग्जाम्पल है राइट तो अब इन्होंने क्या किया है एक तो यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स कनाडा फ्री ट्रेड अग्रीमेंट एंड यूरोप 1992 moved by European Commissions to dismantle impediments. Impediments are roadblocks to the free flow of goods, services, and labor among the state by the end of 1922. तो ये दो ट्रेड्स की बात करिए तो मैंने दो एग्जाम्पल्स लिख दिए तो कौन से एग्जाम्पल्स आर हेल्पिंग ऑफ दिस ट्रेंड सो एग्जाम्पल ऑफ द ट्रेंड क्या है दैट देयर इज एन इंटरैक्शन बिटवीन गवर्नमेंट्स एंड ग्लोबल कॉर्पोरेशन सो एग्जाम्पल की बात हुई है राइट कहाँ पे आना है यू विल नो वेयर टू गो बैक हाउएवर है तो लाइन 4 क्या हो गया लाइन 4 ऑब्जेक्शन हो गया हाउएवर ऑल्दो न्यूमरस पॉलिटिकल एंड इकोनॉमिक फैक्टर्स वर operative in launching the move to integrate EC markets. Concern about protectionism within the EC does not appear to have major contribution. So this is in sharp contrast to FTA. So ये EC की situation क्या है, और फिफ्थ में ऑब्जेक्शन या डिफरेंशिएशन या वेरिएशन ऑफ FTA एक्सप्लेन कर दिया. तो अगर कोई आपसे पूछे कि FTA में, फॉरेन ट्रेड अग्रीमेंट में, फ्री ट्रेड अग्रीमेंट यूएसए और कनाडा में और यूरोप के बीच में क्या डिफरेंशिएशन फैक्टर था, तो यहाँ पे आप जाके इन्फॉर्मेशन को ट्रेस कर लोगे, right? And nonetheless, and then although markedly different in origin and nature, both regional developments are highly significant. तो यहाँ author conclusion लेकर आ गया last statement पे, that they will foster integration. So what are going to be the benefits? So that's how we bring the discussion to an end. आपको टाइम लगा नहीं? फ्लो ऑफ आइडिया क्लियर है कि उन्होंने कहा कि अब जो recent ट्रेंड है वो ये है कि ग्लोबल कॉर्पोरेशंस और गवर्नमेंट्स के बीच में इंटरेक्शन इंक्रीज हो रहा है. उसने स्पेसिफिकली यूएसए, जापान और यूरोप का एग्जाम्पल दे दिया. तो उन्होंने कहा कि सिग्निफिकेंट फैक्टर रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर दिस क्या है, वहां पर हम लाइन नंबर 2 पे चले जाएंगे. फिर क्वेश्चन एग्जाम्पल ऑफ दिस ट्रेंड में दो एग्रीमेंट्स की बात करी, फिर एफटीए और यूरोप का ट्रेंड कैसे वेरी करता है उसको दो स्टेटमेंट्स ने एक्सप्लेन किया, और एंड में कह दिया कि व्हाट आर द बेनिफिट्स ऑफ सच मूव्स. फ्लो ऑफ आइडिया क्लियर है आपको? ओवरऑल क्या चल रहा है पैसेज में पता है, फोकस आपका लूज हुआ नहीं, स्क्रैच पेपर में आपका टाइम कंज्यूम किया नहीं. अब स्पेसिफिक क्वेश्चन, आप अगर दूसरे साइड ऑफ द टेबल पे होते, अगर आप एक क्वेश्चन क्रिएट कर रहे होते तो आप क्या क्वेश्चन क्रिएट करते? आप, यू वुड हैव क्रिएटेड दैट, व्हाट इज द न्यू ट्रेंड. So you can go to the first line. Which of the factors are responsible for this trend? You can go to the second line. What are the examples where such trend has been exhibited? Third line. Then how FTA is different from Europe, 1992. So you can go to fourth or fifth line, and what would be the significant benefits, or what is the conclusion? You can go to the last line. Specific questions, you know where to go back, and general questions you'll be able to answer because you know the flow of discussion, right? So I hope it is clear. I'll give you a minute. Please map it in your notebook so that you know the pattern. You can do the variations as you would want. You can make a table, you can just do the scratch paper like I've suggested, whatever works for you. This is just an idea given to you that how you are going to keep involved. So please do that. I'll give you 1 minute and then we'll try to solve the questions. Both are general questions, so uh, we should be able to answer the questions without revisiting the entire information. Do that. So let's further see the question. The primary purpose of the passage is as a whole. So just take a look at the answer choices and then we'll discuss. Primary purpose is why the passage has been written. Describe an initiative and propose. एक initiative नहीं है, ये एक trend है, right? So that's the reason this can go out. Continuance is how it's continuing. Chronicle a development inconsistencies. Inconsistencies की बात नहीं हुई है, so even this choice can get eliminated. Identify a trend. एक trend को identify किया और importance बताइए. We can keep this. Summarize a process and question नहीं किया कि ये trend सही है कि गलत है. So what would be the correct answer? C. See how our life is really easy if we are doing mapping. आप इतना टाइम क्वेश्चन सॉल्विंग में सेव कर लेंगे कि अगर आपको मैपिंग में 1 or 2 minutes लगेंगे नहीं. वैसे लेट मी टेल यू, इट वुड नॉट टेक एनी एक्स्ट्रा टाइम, बट इफ यू स्टिल हैव दिस इन योर माइंड, the more you are going to practice, the better you'll be acquainted, and you'll yourself realize that this is a time saving approach, not a time consuming approach, right? So what is the best way to describe the organization of the passage? This is a structure question, right? So an argument is put forth and evidence for and against is given. So ये theory के advantages disadvantages की बात नहीं की, this can go out. And assertion is made and opposing evidence नहीं present किया, two hypothesis नहीं, एक ही hypothesis की बात हो रही है, so what is the remaining answer? D. So that's what I say कि process of elimination करिए, keep on eliminating the incorrect answer choices, whatever remains shall serve as the right answer. Right, so I hope you really enjoyed the session and you found the strategies useful. जितना आप practice करेंगे, जितना apply करेंगे, उतना you'll get better. And this is a tried and tested approach, and this has been a remarkable improvement in the performance of the students in comprehension section. So please do try. Be a little patient for initial few passages, and gradually you'll absorb the approach and you'll see the great benefit it is going to give you in your question solving of reading comprehension. So thank you so much for watching the video. Please help us share the word and watch the space for some more insightful videos. Please take care. Bye bye. God bless.